What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl Wi-Fi battle. Bringing you another team that is sure to cause some shenanigans. I have some fun favorites like Ampharos and Sharpedo, and some classic OU strong mons like SCIZOR and Dragonite. And my opponent has a pretty good variety as well, a team you don't normally see every day. I'm using the 2021 link code, so it's kind of surprising to see some cool mons. But he's actually going to lead with his Blissey, and I'm going to lead with my Mew. And the point of this Mew lead is to set up some Stealth Rocks. I also carry the Toxic, so I get to, inflict some status there, which is cool. And I'm also fully invested in Special Attack, so this thing can pack a pretty powerful punch. And, I carry the Dazzling Gleam just for dragons, and some Dark-type mons as well. And if Blissey couldn't get any more annoying than it actually is, this thing actually sets up Calm Mind, which sucks after I get my rocks up. So at least I get the rocks, but now I have to deal with this thing setting up on me. So I just decide to go for the Toxic on this turn and just punish him for every turn he wants to stay in and, think that he can just run circles around me, because that's not going to happen in this match. He actually decides to go for the Ice Beam, and because I'm also fully invested in HP, Mew eats it up like it's nobody's business, and now it's time to switch out into something that can actually take an attack, but also put this thing to its grave, because I'm tired of looking at it. Blissey's are the bane of my existence. So I think about going into SCIZOR, but I'd rather just go into something like Sharpedo, because in case he does Ice Beam again, I can take that relatively well, even though Sharpedo's defenses are quite trash, but I could also pack a powerful punch and start setting up my speed boost. So he goes for the Ice Beam again, which is great, and it does quite a bit of damage, but now the best thing for me to do is just go for Liquidation, cross my fingers, hope that this thing takes it out, and it looks like it's going to do a ton of damage, but because Blissey is just such a tank, this unit hangs on with such little HP left. Sharpedo's down bad because now this thing is going to set up a Sunny Day, and I'm assuming it's for the Charizard because now he can just come in and blast me with the Solar Beam. But thankfully enough, the Toxic does come through for me, and the Thicky Easter Bunny is no more, which is all I could ever ask for in a Pokemon battle. No soft-boiled stall, no more setting up Calm Minds. It's just a matter of kind of seeing how my opponent is going to operate with the Sun now. So as expected, he's going to go into the Charizard, and now I have to make an important decision. With him sitting at half health because of the rocks, do I go for the Liquidation? I think I do. I'm fairly confident that I should be able to take it out at half health, and I do. Sharpedo with the Life Orb coming through, and Charizard's down. That's 2 mons down, and I'm still rolling with my 6. Sharpedo is honestly, after a day of battling with Sharpedo, I completely have to apologize to this mon because it is heavily slept on. I mean, granted, this thing has pretty bad defense stats, but regardless, this thing hits like a freaking truck. So he's going to send in his Nidoqueen now, which I was a little surprised about, and he's actually going to disconnect there. So that's the end of the first match, but I'm not satisfied. I don't want to stop there. I want to keep rolling with this team, so I'm going to find another battle. So I end up finding another opponent in the same link code, and it looks like it's National Charizard Day or something, because I'm going up against another Charizard, but this time also accompanied by Tauros, Tyranitar, Mismagius, SCIZOR, and Feraligatr. So definitely a daunting team, but I also have some good threats on my side, but some mons that may need some help as well, like Ampharos and Sharpedo. Despite it being really good, it's also a glass cannon because it's super susceptible to priority moves like Mach Punch, even Fake Out from like Ambipom. It just stands no chance against certain priority moves like that. So, you got to use it wisely, but when you can start setting up, the thing is fantastic. So back to the battle, my opponent's going to lead with her Feraligatr. I'm going to lead off with my Mew just like last time, and I'm loving Stealth Rocks for this match because, again, this opponent also has a Charizard, so ripping into half of their HP is something that I can definitely appreciate. But I also have to consider the fact that I'm staring down a giant hungry-ass alligator, which is a huge torment to this metagame specifically. So I definitely want to get up my Toxic, because if they do start setting up the Dragon Dance this turn, it's going to be pure torture. So I'd rather punish them for every turn they stay in as they try and be greedy with their Dragon Dances. But that's not the case. They actually go for the Crunch right away, thinking they can take me down. But Psych, Mew is pretty bulky, so I get to stay in, live another day, and go right for my Stealth Rock. So I get to not only Toxic this thing, but also set up my entry hazards, and they're going to go for the Waterfall, taking down my Mew. It's unfortunate that Mew couldn't do more this match, but I did what I needed to do for the long haul of this game. Now my next switch is going to be pretty determinant on the fact of what do I want to take damage, and I'd rather preserve my Venusaur for as long as possible. And I guess I probably should have bought it in because I think Venusaur does outspeed Feraligatr before Dragon Dance, but I ended up going into Ampharos here because this thing is so slow that it probably really can't do much anyway, and I'm just going to blast it away with a Thunderbolt. So I do that. I mean, if I bought in Venusaur, I also would have gone for a Leaf Storm, and then I would have had to switch, and I have to risk Leaf Storm missing, so I think there are a lot of factors that went into that decision. I was kind of hoping that this thing might get scared and think that I was Scarf and switch, so I could hit something else pretty hard with a Choice Specs Thunderbolt, but that wasn't the case. So now my opponent is going to go into Mismagius, and just because, like I said, Ampharos can't outspeed a damn thing, I have to just stay in and see what happens, and it turns out they go for the Shadow Ball, and that's the end of the road for Ampharos. A huge favorite of mine, but it's just very unfortunate that it's not speedy whatsoever. I don't think I put any EVs into the speed tier just because I don't think it would have mattered for anything that it goes up against, truthfully, but I'll have to look into that. But now it's time for the Glass Cannon to shine, and that's my Sharpedo, of course. I could go for the Protect tier, but I'm also figuring that this thing is probably going to switch out predicting a Crunch or predicting a Protect, so they may want to go into something else and waste my Protect. So I'm just going to go for the Crunch. I'd rather do that and take advantage of the fact that I do have an advantage here in terms of power. And it turns out that they actually do withdraw their Mismagius, and they're going to bring in the Tauros to take the Crunch. And I'm thinking, oh, Tauros, this thing could be a special attacker. It could also be a physical attacker. But this thing has the Intimidate, which is going to really suck. And just putting me at -1, the Crunch does quite a bit of damage. And now this thing is sitting at about half. I get my speed boost. I could go for Liquidation, but I'm too scared to lose the Sharpedo, so you can see here the clock is ticking down. I'm desperately trying to run damage calcs, and it turns out that there's just such a tight window of, yeah, I could have knocked out the Tauros, but it really depended on the roll, and I didn't want to risk that. So I go into SCIZOR, and thankfully this thing is not a special attacker, it's not carrying Flamethrower or Thunderbolt of any sort, and because SCIZOR is defensive, Double Edge isn't going to do anything to me, so now I get to just safely go for the U-turn. He's going to go for Earthquake, and again, I eat that up, no problem. And the U-turn should take out the Tauros, and it does. So now, with his Feraligatr and Tauros down, my Sharpedo in great standing, I'm pretty good for whatever comes in next. So I'm thinking maybe here Dragonite is the play, just because this opponent does not have any entry hazard set up on me. My multi-scale is also still intact, so why not bring in Dragonite and start setting up some Dragon Dances? This Dragonite is also Adamant Nature and fully invested in its attack power, so it's a huge threat, and honestly, I'm not that worried about whatever they bring in. She's actually going to bring in her Piplup.net, which is the SCIZOR. Interesting name, I love it though. And because of the Stealth Rocks, again, I'm getting great chip. And now, like I said, I'm not really that worried. Yeah, this thing could be defensive, but I'm just going to start setting up my Dragon Dances and seeing where things go. You know, SCIZOR can't do too much to me unless there's something that I don't know about. Maybe they have Swords Dance. And she's actually going to switch out into Charizard here, which was kind of crazy that they're doubling out and getting even more Stealth Rock damage. But I guess they predicted Earthquake, which could have been a good move, but instead I get a free Dragon Dance and get to keep my multi-scale. I'm really not worried. And I'm thinking here, maybe I just go for Outrage. It would probably be the best move. Stab, boosted, Outrage. Why not? It turns out though that this Charizard is Choice Scarf, which does suck because now my multi-scale is broken, but the Charizard goes down. Granted, with the Stealth Rocks, anything probably would have killed it. So I probably should have thought more about that, but I didn't really expect the double out there, so interesting move. If I had to guess, they're going to bring in Tyranitar, and they actually do. Tyranitar is very bulky, but again, with a fully invested attacking Dragonite sitting at +1 and going for an Outrage, can this thing actually survive? We'll have to see. Go for the Outrage, and there it is. Tyranitar goes down. This Dragonite is lethal. I couldn't be happier just because there were some major threats from the other side that I was worried about, Tyranitar and Feraligatr probably being the biggest two. Now I'm predicting that they may just go into SCIZOR. Maybe they start setting up. Maybe they anticipate that I'm going to be greedy and go for another Outrage, so they, take the hit there. But they actually go into Mismagius. And here I am going to be greedy and go for another Outrage. I just think it's best. And I do hit myself in the confusion. It's going to do a lot of damage because I am at an elevated attack stat. And they go for the Dazzling Gleam, and that knocks me out, which is kind of crazy. Granted, yes, Mismagius is very strong, but I just didn't expect it to kill me from there. So I didn't think I was in range. I have to go into Sharpedo now. I'm forced. I have to go for the Protect and then the Crunch because this thing can still outspeed me just without any Scarf or anything. It's just Miss Maggie's stats are better in terms of speed. Now I'm thinking maybe this thing is Choice Specs, or maybe it's Scarf. I'm not entirely sure. But I don't see Leftovers, I don't see Life Orb. But after Speed Boost, I should be faster. This kind of was a gamble because if this thing is Scarfed, I'm dead. But I'm going to go for the Crunch anyway. Cross my fingers here. And it turns out that I am faster. The Crunch is going to take down the Miss Magius, no problem. And that's the end of the road right there. So now it's just the Scizor. So I have 3 Pokemon and my opponent has 1. But despite that, you can't sleep on Scizor ever. Scizor is definitely one of the biggest Pokemon in the metagame as well. It's been super consistent throughout all these years. So you can't sleep on Scizor. This thing could be full of surprises. Especially with the BDSP metagame, this metagame is packed with Scizors that are super physically defensive, so you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, and unfortunately I haven't had the opportunity to attack this thing, so I don't know what I'm working with. So I'm going to go for the Liquidation here, fingers crossed that it does a lot, and it does a good chunk of damage, but it's not what I was hoping for. So now this thing is actually going to reveal that it has the Swords Dance, and I'm sweating, because despite having 3 Mons, Sharpedo, good old Sharpedo, is definitely not going to be able to take an attack, and I'm hoping that if they go for Bullet Punch, it doesn't kill me because I resist it. I'm hoping that they don't go for Bullet Punch at all, so I'm just going to go for another Liquidation, and it turns out they do go for the Bullet Punch, and that's a wrap for Sharpedo. Like I said, Glass Cannon. That leaves me with my Venusaur and my own Scizor sitting at a little bit more than half HP, and I'm going to go for Venusaur here. I do have Sleep Powder, I also have Earthquake, so I have a few options, and I'm going to go back and forth between what I want to do. I feel like I should Sleep Powder, but Sleep Powder has a really good tendency of missing whenever I need it the most, so I think I should just go for the attacking move with the Earthquake, put it in range so my own Scizor can kill it, and Earthquake does nothing. Nothing what I was hoping for, and it turns out that this thing has Aerial Ace. Oh my gosh, and once my Venusaur goes down in 1 hit, I'm like, okay, I could really fall from grace here and lose to just having 3 Pokemon to having none. And unfortunately, my Scizor isn't sitting at full HP, so I have to be careful here. I'm going to go for Bullet Punch and see what I can do, and I'm thinking 1 more does the trick. He's going to go for Aerial Ace, and I live it, thankfully. So now it's going to be a battle of who's faster, who's going to go for what, and I feel like it's going to be a battle of the Bullet Punches. My opponent is going to win out and beat me to the punch, quite literally, and oh my gosh, it's a critical hit, and I lose to a crit. I don't know if that mattered or not. I'm not sure if that was significant. I should probably look into it, but oh my gosh, what a great game to my opponent, Jewel. Fantastic battling. I loved your team. I also loved the first opponent as well with their team. Very unique. I had a great time with these battles, guys. If you want to follow me and keep up with more BDSP content before BDSP gets kicked to the curb because of Scarlet and Violet, hit the subscribe button, like this video, leave me a comment. I would love to hear more from you, and I'll see you on the next one.